and welcome to Heart-Centered Conversations with me, Jane McDowell, the podcast where I talk to people about books and how they've helped us shift our perceptions, inspired us, and helped us to do good things in the world. And I'm very pleased today to introduce my wonderful guest, David Roylance, or as I like to call him, Sir David Roylance. So, David, before we talk about the book that you brought along today,
Yes.
tell us a bit about what you do.
So I am an author myself. I'm an Amazon best-selling author of Be Seen, Be Heard, Get Paid What You're Worth. I'm an award-winning coach, and I'm co-founder of HCB Speak to Shine, where I help women get connected to their presence and their power so that they can use that to make significantly more money.
Awesome. And, having been on the receiving end of some of your training, I totally recommend you.
Thank you.
So tell me, David, what's the book that you brought along today?
Today, and I am and on about which book I should bring along, because, I'm a great believer that reading is how you learn how to think.
Yes,
right?
Yeah.
Whether you're reading something you agree with or disagree with, you're learning how to think through the assimilation of ideas. And so there are so many books and so many writers that I'm super keen on. But today, for you and this conversation, I've chosen this. This book, Never Split the Difference.
Amazing.
By Chris Voss with Tal Raz. Now, I'm assuming that Tal Raz is kind of a ghostwriter for Chris. Chris is a former and at the time foremost FBI hostage negotiator in the 90s.
Wow. Yeah, I have to say, full disclosure, I haven't read this book, so I'm very eager to hear about it and what it's done for you.
It's by far the best thing around negotiation that I've ever read, because it posits the idea that, and there's 10 chapters in here where he very cleverly demonstrates a technique in terms of how you might release someone who's been kidnapped, and then uses the same technique in a business negotiation, whether it be negotiating with a big corporate who's asking you to do a service for significantly less money, whether it's in a sales conversation when you're selling a service to somebody, whether it's a tenant negotiating with their landlord. All of life is negotiation. That's kind of the theme of the book. Everything you enter into is some form of negotiation. Even this conversation is kind of a form of negotiation, because we're kind of negotiating as we go what it is we're going to talk about. So, and really, because that's the theme of the book, that was a massive eye-opener for me. Now, this book I keep next to my bed and I dip into.
Exciting times, David.
Yeah, exactly. So that because there's so much gold in here, and I was reading it over the past couple of days in preparation for this. I was going back to it and saying, thinking to myself, what should I talk about? Can I remember this technique, that technique? And the thing is, they're now so unconscious. I'm like, of course I do. I do that every day. Of course, I do that every day.
So, David, was negotiating something that you found a challenge before you read this book? Was it something?
Yeah, and I think negotiating and selling. I think in the past, I have had the mindset and the attitude that many people have, that selling is in some way dirty and it's greedy to want things for yourself. And so in the past, I massively undersold myself before I started, investing in my own development. And as part of that, I found out about Chris Voss and about this book, and just ordered it and devoured it within 48 hours for the very first time.
Oh, so you must have been, when you picked it up, it must have held your attention for you.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of sales books don't, right? A lot of sales books I find really, trudging through them.
That's really one of the reasons why it's important to keep looking at different books, isn't it? Because some of them will resonate with you immediately. Some of them you'll pick up and you'll be like, what, I don't get this.
Yeah,
But then you
later.
come back to it later and it kind of makes sense because pennies have dropped and you've
Yeah.
had your perception's been shifted by other things and other experiences. So yeah, that's why it's really always great to come back to a text, even if you found it difficult in the first place, I think.
Yeah, and you can come back to things you don't like all the time. I mean, I come back to films I don't like all the time, but and go, oh, I really like this now. And you know, when
Yeah,
I saw this 10 years ago, and I thought it was absolute rubbish, but now, oh, now I'm in a different place. You know,
yeah,
so
yeah,
I'm seeing or hearing different things in the same way that you can read. You can read something as a child and think it, oh, this is dense and really hard. I read when I was at school. I read lots of Shakespeare as part of my English, and I just thought it was tough. And then I met my first mentor in the world of the voice, Patsy Rodenberg, and she's the at least the world's #1
yeah,
Shakespeare expert as well as voice coach. And so when the musicality of the language, when speaking it out loud, suddenly it's very different. And then I had a complete 180-degree about turn in relation to Shakespeare. So I totally get that idea.
yeah. And of course, I was thinking when you were talking about films and also for TV programs as well, things that I used to think were amazing, and I've watched them since, and I've gone, "Oh my God, it's so
Oh,
awful."
yeah,
Not
yeah, it
necessarily
goes both ways.
but
Yeah.
they were of their time as well, isn't it? It's
Ah.
like, I remember it's slightly going off topic, but hey, I remember watching Eddie Murphy stand up when
Oh
I 2021, and I thought it was hysterical. And then I went back and watched it a couple of years ago and I was horrified because just like it was really misogynist, sexist, it was really cruel. And I thought, wow, how come I found it really funny when I was 2021?
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? So yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So
you're right. It works both ways.
yeah. So what do you think was the biggest takeaway from you from the
Biggest
book?
takeaway. Okay, so uh, one of the things that he explains in the book is that until the 1980s, the presumption that all hostage negotiators made was that this whole thing is about logic,
Right.
right? And so we make logical steps and we make logical offers and we do logical things until in the early 1980s, the FBI had 3 really bad hostage situations go wrong. Lots of people died. And they didn't understand why, because logically they'd always done the logical thing. Like they had a plane situation where the hostage taker had released 2 of the hostages. They thought they were doing well, and they thought, well, logically, the next step is to blow out the tires of the plane so he can't go anywhere.
Hmm.
So they did, and he went absolutely bananas, killed everyone, and then killed himself
Okay. Hmm.
because they hadn't figured into the equation at all emotions.
Yeah, because that doesn't come into logic anywhere, does it? There's no
Nowhere,
logic when
right?
it comes to emotion. Yeah.
And so when Chris Voss came in and completely revolutionized how they approach things, it's almost none of it's about logic. I mean, there is logic in there, but almost none of it is.
Yeah.
It's all about emotions and being able to understand people's emotions, draw people's emotions out, and then from that create a relationship that allows something to end without violence. That's the tricky bit, right?
Yeah.
But and and of course it completely revolutionized the way the FBI worked in that respect and how they got people out of situations. It took time, but it's all about understanding people's emotions and understanding the sort of universality of what makes people feel safe or protected or
Mm.
all of those things. And so that's been that. I think that's probably the biggest takeaway from me, is to kind of, logic almost has nothing to do with the decisions
So
that
how have
people make.
you, because I mean, I know you, David, so I know that you don't spend your time working out hostage situations. So how have you
It's
been
true.
able to
Although that,
relate?
I could join the FBI in this outfit. But you're absolutely right. That's not the game that I'm in. The game
Mm,
that I am in is helping people to be seen at a level of value that they would like to be seen. Then again, emotions comes into it, because every human being has got a series of skills and a series of values that they could potentially resonate in the world, and if only they didn't have fear about what other people thought.
yeah, so true.
And then we sort of shut ourselves down because, again, emotionally, the fear of judgment or the fear of rejection all come into play, and so people don't resonate at a level that they naturally should resonate. And that's the game I play in, helping people to resonate at the level they should be, with the talent and the skills and the values that they do have, so that people go, oh wow, they're super amazing people. I hadn't realized that before, because I hadn't sort of really seen them.
Yeah,
And as a result of seeing how marvelous they are, I think I'm going to pay them more.
cool. And
I,
and and have you been able to like notice a time in your own life where you may have used those skills to good effect that you picked up from the book?
well, I have two children, so yeah, absolutely.
So it's like
All the
constant
time.
negotiation then.
So, well, it is, and good for them as well that it's like that, because that constant negotiation thing is about learning how to become independent, how to get what you want, and then decide whether what you want is actually what you want. And so it's not just a negotiation. It's kind of how do we do this conversation in a way that empowers you
Hmm.
but not sabotages you,
Yeah, that's
particularly with teenagers, right, who are really keen to sabotage themselves.
yeah. Well, I
In
think a lot of
in
adults as well, to be
Yeah,
honest.
no, that's true. Yeah, well, there are, yeah, a lot of adults are still teenagers, really, in inside.
Arrested development. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. I certainly recognise that in myself, but
yes,
yeah, I think that, learning to negotiate in all sorts of manners and situations is a really valuable asset. I know that, I've got friends who are super negotiators. One in particular, she is able to, get really fantastic venues for parties and events. She just it just seems effortless to her to just
yeah.
negotiate a really great deal. Whereas, I'm kind of more of a, I get told the price and I think, oh, okay, well, I'll either find a way to afford it or I'll look for something else, rather than say, okay, well, hang about, how about we, and I think for some people negotiating comes really naturally, and for others of us, we have to learn those skills. And so it sounds like this book is a really good way to do that.
It's a really good way to do it, and it's an exciting read as well, because every chapter involves a genuine life or death situation,
Yeah,
well as a business
yeah. So
situation.
it's got that kind of, like you say, excitement rather than just a dull text, you know,
Yeah,
kind of flavor to it.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, awesome. So what else is on your agenda for reading?
Uh, right now, I've just received recently in the post.
Oh, what have we got here?
It's not about the book, but
Oh,
by
very nice
Chris and
plug
Karene
there.
Lambert-Gorwyn and David Crostobal. So that's sitting next on my reading list.
Yeah, yeah. I'm really lucky. I got a preview of that book and I read it really, like you said,
Mm,
with the book you bought today, that, I read it within, in fact, I think it was within 24 hours I read it. It's such an easy
yes.
read. And I came away from it thinking, oh my God, I really want to write another book because, I've been involved in a few books and I haven't actually written anything myself, just me. So it really fired me up to,
Oh, yeah, you must, Jane. You must let
I
that voice
must.
and let that voice out in writing, because
Yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah,
with my own book, it's amazing how many people read the book and feel that they somehow have a knowing of me. They understand me better. So it's
yeah,
really good at
absolutely.
creating massive trust.
Yeah, I've read your book, and I guess in a way I might be a bit biased because I already know your voice. So when I read it, I heard you delivering the words. I found it really, really easy to read. And all the tips and exercises you put in there to help people improve the way they're heard are really easy to follow as well. So thoroughly recommend that book. And how about non-fiction? What's that like in your
Aha,
life?
yes. I I haven't had a lot of non-fiction time recently, because I'm still kind of boning up on skills. I'm looking to grow a company really quickly over
Yeah,
the next couple of years. So I'm like, what's the knowledge that I can
yeah,
absorb
yeah.
and bring into the world? But I've always been a voracious reader of the whodunit genre, and
Hmm.
when I was younger, more science fiction, I think. But now, I love, and I have a desire at some point. I want to read all of the Poirots in order.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That's and so because I can, I can do that, and uh, yes, so kind of that whodunit sort of genre, particularly stuff set in the glamorous 20s and 30s. Really, that's it's a nice escape. It's a nice place to escape to.
Yeah, I think it's important I always have a fiction on the go at the same time. In fact,
Very good
quite
idea.
often be reading 3 or 4 books at the same time. So I might be having one on audio and, a couple, three in sort of hard form, and yeah, just revolving around them because I like to keep my mind going. And I
Yes.
also like you said, like to have that kind of escape route as well. And
Yes.
also, I would find that you always learn things from fiction as well because,
You do.
you know,
You're absolutely right.
that whole kind of empathy. So you put yourself in the situation of the main protagonist usually,
Yeah.
and then you're kind of absorbing all of their experiences and picking up on, their perceptions of the world, which often help to shift mine anyway. So
Yes.
yeah, yeah. So
Yeah. And through fiction, we can experience almost anyone's life. We can put
yeah,
ourselves in to the shell of any character,
yeah,
if we choose to.
yeah, yeah. I don't know about you, but I've got to the end of books before and literally reached the last page and burst into tears because
Yes, yeah.
where are these people in my life now? And I'm like, oh, I'll have to read the book again. And often when I was younger, my mum would say, "What are you crying for, Dane?" I'm like, "Well, I've just finished my book." So yeah, yeah.
A
Oh,
book I
so
really want to go back to is
yeah,
Ayn Rand's The Fountainhead, which
okay,
which is sort of it's fiction, and it's also got a kind of personal development uh, echo in it. It's the story of an architect who's so individualistic that and so determined to realize himself that he virtually pisses off everyone else around him. And it's a big, chunky. I think
yeah,
it's about 700 pages, and I tried. I started and I got about 100 pages in when and I stopped because I was devouring all the nonfiction, and I
yeah,
think there's a time I want to get back and start again at the beginning.
mm,
The Gary Cooper film from the 40s I saw years and years ago, like when I lived in Edinburgh when I was in my 20s, and I saw it at the cinema, and I thought, oh, this is absolutely amazing. It had some of the most stunningly obvious Freudian imagery that I've ever seen in golden age film of men operating pneumatic drills and women going, ooh. No, but yeah, the book I want to go back to and read the whole thing. There, that's one that's sort of sitting. It's somewhere. My bedroom's a mess at the moment because we're having an extension built, and my bedroom is kind of like a space for lots of cardboard boxes. So I know it's in there somewhere, but as to where, I don't know.
Well, let's hope you find it soon and
Mm.
reconnect with it. It sounds like a good read. So, David, it's been an utter pleasure chatting to you today, and thank you so much for bringing this book to our attention.
Thank you. I do heartily recommend this to everybody. Never split the difference.
Yeah.
You know, it's for, yeah, whatever you're doing in life, if you want to make more of it.
So, I will put all the details of the books we mention in these chats into the information along with the podcast so that people can find them for themselves. Good. And in the meantime, David, it's been a pleasure talking to you, and I will say good night.
Good night. Thank you, Jane. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.